You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode,
The Martians are coming in Fab Facts.
We're brushing up on Greek mythology in the Randomiser.
and Connor Flanagan sketches a scary story.
Does he? Okay, well that's all coming up in Pod 229.
That was supposed to be my Vincent Price impression of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Would you care to explain yourself there? What was that impression?
I think I've given all the explanation I need to give, Jamie. I was trying to do, because it's Halloween, a Vincent Price impression.
Well, in that case, it was a spooktacular Vincent Price
Fang you
impression.
very much.
Ooh, yeah, I don't have any more in the.
Is that it?
No,
What, two gags
in my
That's
Halloween pun bucket. I'm afraid that's all I've got.
Oh, okay then.
Soz.
That's all right. Well,
Anyway.
I can't think of anything either.
Happy Halloween!
Oh yes, happy Halloween!
If you do that, and if you don't do that, then you can just ignore any mentions of anything Halloweeny or spooky. It probably won't change much on this podcast, I suspect.
It really won't. No, that's right. No.
Do you think we'll have a spooky fab fact, or a spooky interview, or a spooky randomiser? Or
I mean, we've got. Well, I mean, Vincent Price just told us in the preview there that Connor Flanagan, in the second part of your interview with him, is going to give us a scary story.
and
So
I
there's that to look forward to.
suppose Operation Sabre has got a bit of a scariness to it. So yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So all then we need is Torture the Battery Boy in the randomiser.
Oh no, come on, that's taking it a bit too far, isn't it?
And Candy and Andy in Fab Facts, and we'll have a full house of spooks. How's that?
Yes, it's terrifying.
It's probably not going to happen though, because both the randomizer and Fab Facts are to some degree random. But let's find out later in this episode. Now, are you doing anything for Halloween? Are you dressing up or?
No, I'm not. No, I'm probably turning all the lights off when the kids come round and knock on the door. That's what I usually do.
That's a bit
Hide
sinister.
behind the sofa.
Oh, I see. Right. Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to give away any of my precious sweets.
No, of course. You'll be
How dare they.
stuffing them down your gullet. Well, thankfully, the lane that I live down in rural Wales, I think is a bit scary anyway.
Yes.
And so nobody really comes down here for trick-or-treating or anything like that. So it'll be peaceful here. Anyway, look, you, the one that turns off the lights and hides for the kids, you're Richard James.
That's true. Keeping it real.
Keeping it real. Nice.
Hey, how's that?
Yeah, that's great.
No? Yeah?
That's great. And down the dark and twisted lane, it's me. I'm Jamie Anderson.
Having a howling good time.
Always, yes, absolutely. And then the randomizer, Chris Dalek. I mean, that's kind of scary in and of itself, isn't it? The name from his Twitter handle.
What do you think? That's it. We don't need to go for a pun.
I'm struggling. Well, can you get one? Can you squeeze one out?
Well, as we're talking Halloween puns, what about maybe Chris lives on a pumpkin patch? No.
Does
pumpkin.
he? Oh, pumpkin. Oh.
No.
Right, this isn't going to work. Let's just forget the whole Halloween thing.
Sure.
This episode is going to be awkwardly brought to you by all things Halloweeny and spooky, which we're going to fail to do throughout. So apologies in advance.
Yeah.
So, would you like a fab fact to get us moving?
Oh, yes, go on. Then you don't even want a rundown of what's coming up. No, that's fine. Let's just carry straight on.
I've just realised that. Is that weird to not have a rundown?
No, come on, let's go for it. Come on, that's fine.
Oh, now I feel really
fine.
creeped out. Okay, let's do it. Now I feel terrified about what might happen. We haven't done it.
Let's get the scariest part of the podcast out the way first, shall we?
Okay, it's Fang Facts.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, it's not Fang Facts. Actually, it's just Fab Facts. Because I've got a book of Fab Facts. There it is. And I flicked through it, and Richard shouts Fab. Do you want to shout something else this week? Do you want to shout boo or something to make it a bit Halloween-y?
Okay, I'll shout boo. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Richard will shout boo, and that'll stop me flicking, and there'll be a fab fact on a page, and I'll read it, and, it might be scary, probably won't be, because this is random, so let's hope
That's wishful thinking. Hey?
It's like
Go
the
on,
ghost of
carry on.
Terry Adlam's here. It's amazing. Shall we? Let's do this. Here we go. Here comes the flicking. Ready with your boo?
Yes.
Off we
already.
go.
Boo!
Oh, I should have jumped, shouldn't I? I should have gone, oh! But no.
Oh, yeah, never mind.
Okay. Well, we're sort of in a kind of bright zone here. Anyway, look, Richard James.
Yes.
What was the very first science fiction project to involve a Mr. Gerald Alexander Anderson?
First science fiction project?
Yes.
Well, it's got to be... Oh, well, are we talking Fireball XL5?
Well, you're talking before that, aren't you, really?
Yeah. Are we talking...
I mean, Supercar
What?
before that, so...
Yeah.
But actually, we're talking...
Before
maybe
that?
before that, yeah, because
Right.
you might guess Supercar because it was the first series to put puppets in a high-tech vehicle
Okay.
to get over the frustration of trying to make them walk realistically, and you might even think, oh, could it have been Torchy the Battery Boy? Because Torchy was sort of an early creepy sort of Cyberman type creature, sort of Cyber Pinocchio, if you will.
Okay.
And he did have
Could
a
say
rocket
that.
ship as well. And then, of
Sure.
course,
Yeah.
you could maybe even guess Twizzle, because the title character possessed the terrifying ability to extend his arms and legs in inhuman proportions. That's sort of a bit weird, isn't it? A bit fantastical.
Well, it's certainly weird, yeah.
Yeah, okay, Twizzle is weird. But in fact, Dad's first encounter of the sci-fi kind was in a cult film called
Yes.
Devil Girl from Mars.
Oh, I like it.
Yes.
I think I've met her.
Have you?
Yeah.
See if
Think
you
I married
recognise
her.
this.
Yeah.
Oh, ouch. Poor Charlotte. No. Devil Girl from Mars was a low-budget British film from 1954 about an isolated inn on the moors of Scotland besieged by a mysterious and vinyl-clad alien.
Naturally.
And she was an alien invader called Naya. Now,
Oh.
Naya arrives, of course, in a flying saucer and interrupts the pedestrian drama of the locals, allegedly with the goal of using this rural spot as a springboard for an invasion of London, where she will kidnap Earthmen to keep the population of Mars stable.
Okay.
That's what she alleged, anyway. Now, apparently...
Yes, that's her story. She's sticking to it. Yeah.
Yes,
Go on.
well, she gave an explanation because apparently the men of Mars were decimated by a war between the sexes.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, it soon becomes clear that Naya's real mission is to brag, basically, about how
Right.
much more awesome she is than the puny Earthlings, as she describes her plans in detail and demonstrates her powers of teleportation, her deadly ray gun, a rather large refrigerator box-shaped robot named Channy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, a bit weird.
Interesting.
Will the people of Earth put a stop to her dastardly plans and save London from invasion?
Oh, I should imagine so.
That's, well, all right.
Yeah.
Well,
I should imagine they did.
Devil Girl from Mars was produced by famous B-movie makers, the Danziger brothers.
Okay.
Now, the production sound was edited by Gerald Anderson, later better known as Gerry, because he hated being called Gerald.
Did he? Yeah.
He did indeed. Some fans have speculated that it actually had an influence on later shows, particularly UFO. But in interviews, Dad was very quick to deny this and to dismiss the movie as cheap and rubbish.
Great. Where can I see it?
I think it might be available, you know. He recalled actually the robot as resembling a petrol pump. And just in case you weren't sure, he did not mean that in a good way. But Dad did acknowledge that the producers were able to work at quite an impressive speed, keeping things on schedule and on budget without resorting to overtime.
Fair enough.
Watching the Danzigers stretch a pound to its limits undoubtedly helped Dad just understand how to get independent productions made, even under low budget conditions or in a time crunch. I'm thinking Crossroads to Crime, for example. But anyway, they were all skills that would come in very handy throughout the rest of his career. Devil Girl from Mars is available on Amazon for those looking to see how Dad learned to make sci-fi, or more accurately, how not to make sci-fi.
Oh, I like it. Great. Right, there's my Halloween viewing sorted.
Devil Girl from Mars. I mean, goodness me, that'll probably require a few beers and quite a lot of popcorn, I imagine. But
Yes, I should imagine so. Nice. Yeah, I like it.
Spooky. Sort of.
Spooky.
Well, it was kind of, wasn't it? That's almost a bit Halloween-y. We kind of managed it at random.
The thing is, everyone's got to start somewhere, haven't they? You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And if that means, a fairly dodgy B movie featuring a vinyl-clad woman from Mars, then so be it.
I mean, it sounds better than Crossroads to Crime.
Now, tell me, in those early years of his career, did your dad have any idea, do you think, of where he wanted to be? Where
Yes.
he wanted to head?
He wanted to direct the next Ben-Hur.
Yeah, right. I
So you can see as he was climbing up through working on these B movies and then working more, Gainsborough Pictures and various other things, he was thinking, I'm getting there. And then I'm directing my own documentary thing. Okay, this is the stepping stone to a movie.
Yeah.
And twizzle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see.
You can see how that was quite damaging to his soul.
Yes.
But then you go, it worked all in our favour because now we get to enjoy the spoils of his embarrassment. Not
Yes.
Twizzle, but the stuff where he was pushing it all forward. So it all helps, doesn't it? All that experience of stuff that he didn't like helped to bring about the stuff that he did like, and therefore we like too. How lovely.
Yeah, that's right.
There you go.
Nice.
Anyway, I think that probably is the end of this one. So that brings us to the end of this week's
Alien
Fact. Oh.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's fair. I suppose it points to you because it's
Devil
Halloween.
Girl from Mars, Devil,
and
Devil,
devilish,
Halloween.
Devil, yeah, fine. Okay, yeah, I'll give you that one.
Thanks.
Have you seen it? Do let us know if you've seen Devil Girl from Mars. Is that what it's called?
Devil Girl from Mars,
Scrolling
yes.
back through the script. Let us know if you've seen it and let us know what you think. And if you have seen it, were you aware that you were watching one of Gerry Anderson's very first forays into the film industry? Now, people, as usual, have been getting in touch, our lovely podstrons, via our email address, which is, of course, and always will be, podcast@gerryanderson.com.
Well done, Richard James. You managed it.
I gave myself plenty of time there to remember it. For example, Chris Turner says, Dear Jamie, Richard and Chris, I hope you're all doing well. My email is a follow-up to a question I asked rather hurriedly towards the end of my the recent Anderson Insiders live stream session. I've recently watched the film Lightyear on Disney+, and I was really impressed with the look of gritty realism achieved in the film, which is of course produced entirely in CGI. It seems to me that a contemporary Anderson show would look great with a similar visual style. So, I'd be interested to know what the team think about the use of CGI to produce a modern-day Anderson show. One of the new shows I could see fitting perfectly is 5 Star 5, John Lovell and the Zargon Threat. I've written before to say how much I enjoyed the book written by Richard James and the audiobook read by Robbie Stevens. He says, I could see the planetary landscapes, ships, vehicles and characters all looking fantastic when rendered in CGI. Chris continues, also, First Action Bureau, expanded out of its audio-only format, would look great in CGI. Being realistic, I know that Jamie has mentioned previously on the podcast that high-quality CGI doesn't come cheap, so it's just a thought, but I can always dream. Anyway, I'm enjoying everything you do, and I'm looking forward to all the new projects. Best wishes from Chris Turner.
Well, thanks, Chris, and thanks for joining in.
Lovely thoughts.
Yes, I mean, I'm increasingly method agnostic, I would say, actually. It's just...
Meaning?
As in the right tool, the right method for the right job, basically. It's not... I don't worship at the altar of supermarination, nor face the mecca of motion capture CGI.
Okay,
I'm struggling with any more religious things, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's great.
It's. I just don't... I don't think that it's solely down to the method that makes something work. It's the story and the excitement and the aspiration and the design and the characters and the writing. There's so many things that make it work. If we needed to do something that was entirely in CGI, great, because it would look glorious. And if we had to do it in 2D animation, then lovely. And if we had to do it in ultramarination, then fantastic. If we did it in stop motion, if it was the right thing for the right type of story.
Yeah.
Whatever. And live action, I mean, First Action Bureau live action, I think.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, that's right.
Just be
but actually, I
gorgeous.
have to say the novels and audio adventures and so on that we've heard and read recently, the pictures live inside your own imagination.
Absolutely.
That's a great thing. And every reader or listener will have their own version of, for example, John Lovell's universe in their heads, which is quite lovely, I think. Hello, Jamie, James, and Chris. Okay. I hope you're doing well, says Joe. Just finished listening to Pod 227. I think the best place to put live events. Ah, yes. We were talking, weren't we, about all the various live events and live streams that you've been having recently, as you've been breaking Gerry Anderson news, Jamie. Where would be the best place to put those live events for people to not book for, but to see when they were coming up? And Joe suggests it would be on the Ander app. It's a great app with an events tab, so an easy place to spot live events. Keep plugging the app, he says. And a Space Precinct Vault, yes, please.
Second, 2 votes. Are you setting this up, Richard?
No, I am really not. No, honestly.
Okay.
But, do keep your support coming in, listeners.
Absolutely. Now, if you do want to download the app, can I recommend that you do so, because you get 20% off your first Gerry Anderson store purchase after you downloaded the app.
Right.
You can you can download it by going to your app store of choice and searching for Ander app, ANDERAPP, or going to the short links for iPhone users on Apple. That is ander.son/anderapple, and for Android users, that is ander.son/anderoid.
Okay.
Sounds like a medical condition, doesn't it?
It really does, yes. That's why I'm not sitting down this week.
Oh dear, how very childish. I'm terribly sorry. But yes, it's lovely, and we're working on more interesting stuff coming into the app, and obviously Ben and co have been working very, very hard on Insiders. Insiders has moved to a new platform, and you can get to Insiders from inside the app. I mean, it's all lovely. There's so much stuff to nourish your Gerry Anderson joy out there. So I hope you're enjoying all of it.
Yeah, lovely. Charles Gray got in touch to say, Dear Jamie and Richard, or Rich and Jamie, whichever you prefer. Well, I know which one I prefer.
Of course you do.
Writing in to tell you, keep up the good work with keeping Gerry's legacy intact. I have very fond memories of watching Thunderbird, Stingray, Captain Scarlet, and the occasional episode of Joe 90. My earliest memory of watching Gerry's work was watching Trapped in the Sky at my grandparents' house. I think it was Trapped in the Sky. I can only remember Thunderbird 2 taking off. Just while I'm here, I'd like to know what's going on with First Action Bureau. I love the first series and would like to see a second, and Firestorm. Also, have you ever thought of what would make a good social deduction game? And Charles suggests Captain Scarlet. Could be a card game like Danger Zone. Looking forward to playing that, by the way. But anyway, keep up the good work and see you around. That's from Charles.
Thanks, Charles. Mm-hmm. Well, we know that we're working on First Action Bureau related things, aren't we, Richard James?
Yeah, we might be.
That's all we can say about that.
Yeah, it might be, yeah.
As for other things, you'll have to stand by for action of some sort. That's all I can say, I suppose.
Okay, fair enough. What a Captain Scarlet card game?
Oh, I mean, there's loads of game stuff on the cards. Boom, boom. Didn't mean to, I didn't mean to do that. Sorry, it just happened.
Great.
Oh dear.
Lovely.
Yes, who knows? But I mean, you get all the advanced information from here and from Anderson Insiders and elsewhere. So there's nothing really that I could say here that hasn't been said or can't yet be said elsewhere.
Yeah.
Or can yet be said elsewhere.
I know that it's Halloween and we're all a bit tense and we're all looking over our shoulders for anything scary that might happen. But I just want to say, calm down, everyone, because Phil Steer has been in touch.
Oh, Phil Steer, so long.
He says, I know, wasn't it lovely to see him in Birmingham finally?
Put a face to the podcast live, I believe it was.
Absolutely. Hi, Richard, Jamie, Chris, and all the Podstrons, says Phil.
Steer.
I've just been watching Thunderbird's Day of Disaster on ITV Hub. All 32 episodes available at the moment, along with other Gerry Anderson shows, he says. Well. Definitely an episode for all owners of an Apple Watch. He continues, Clayton, referring to Brains, I don't believe it. I just don't believe it. He's talking into his watch. Bridge controller. Well, I knew it all along. The man's a nut. The question is, how long will it be before we have the Apple Powder Compact or even the Apple Teapot?
Oh, surely not long.
On another note, I know of at least one Anderson character named after members of the crew, Bob Meddings in Trapped in the Sky.
Yeah.
But are there others or even modelled on members of the crew? All the best from Phil Steer.
Ooh. Well, there was that character in Dick Spanner that was modelled after Dad. Little bald character.
Right, yes.
And it has been potentially mentioned that It Star in Terrorhawks was maybe modelled on me.
Right. Okay. Very good.
How's that?
Yeah. I remember in Space Precinct, we didn't necessarily have people modelled after members of the crew, but they were certainly named after them. We had, I think in Predator and Prey, one of my favourite episodes. That was the Commander episode. One of the Tarn prostitutes that was murdered. Kids show, everyone.
Brilliant.
Was named Mag Serple after the two assistant editors, Mags Arnold, Charlotte Serple.
Nice.
And I'm sure even Commander himself, and I think we've mentioned this before, Enil, E-N-I-L, Enil Commander, which is an anagram of Adam Klein.
Yes.
Yes. Whoever he was.
Who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
And in Terrorhawks, I think in the audio series, we had a nod to our dear and much missed late friend Richard Gregory as Zelda's creator, this Welsh scientist who made Zelda, which is so, in many ways closely linked to Richard's roots and to what he did on the show. So these things are there all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, let us know if you've spotted any other models or puppets that were named or modelled after members of the crew.
Yeah.
Let us know. Drop them in at podcast@gerryanderson.com. Let's see what you've spotted.
Of course, I'm now increasingly looking like Moid from Terrorhawks as well. So
not at all.
Yes, that's true. Anyway, shall we move along very rapidly and maybe do something to take our minds off all this with some Gerry Anderson news?
Oh, yes, please.
Okay, here we go. It's the Gerry Anderson news. He made it spooky, I see.
Yeah.
Yes, it's this week's Gerry Anderson
news. So that was good, wasn't it?
Oh, God, we should do that every week.
I sent a shiver down my spine. Oh, no, I left the door open again. Sorry, hang on. There we go.
That explains it. Anyway, yes, it's. I don't think there'll be anything spooky about this at all, but it is this week's Gerry Anderson news. Let's start with this. So let's start with action figures. You've all been asking for them for ages. Big Chief have come good on them. 3 3/4 inch action figures from Collection 1, with more to follow, which will include Scott Tracy, Troy Tempest, Captain Scarlet, Joe 90, Ed Straker, and John Koenig from Space 1999. Lots more to come from them, and you may be possibly thinking, oh, Big Chief, though. Been waiting ages for ... We absolutely hear you, and we've spoken to Big Chief about production delays, and they have gone above and beyond to reassure us that the timeline expressed for these is going to be something they're going to adhere to. So we'll be keeping you on top of things and telling you everything we hear, but we're pretty confident they're going to be able to meet the deadlines for these. So you're looking basically spring, summer next year. We're saying April, May. I think Big Chief is saying April, but let's see. We'll be able to refine it close to the time. But as we know, even the best laid plans of Big Chief or Anderson Entertainment even can go awry when it comes to deadlines for these things with manufacturing and the world the way it is right now. Anyway, they are very cool. I'm very glad to see these, and I think they're planning several waves, at least 3, and let's hope we'll see some really interesting characters and you can build up your collection.
Yes.
Did you enjoy the Fireball XL5 60th anniversary? Well, we certainly did.
Oh, yeah.
We loved watching Network's Night In. More on that in a moment. Just so you know, the signed editions of the Fireball XL5 comic anthology are on their way. They were slightly delayed, annoyingly. They got stuck in our warehouse, neglected when they shouldn't have been, and weren't shelved and therefore weren't packaged in time for the timely sending out that we'd hoped for, so apologies for that, but they are now on their way. You may even have yours right now, in which case I'm very pleased about that. Equally, would you believe it, we thought we were really well prepared for all of Fireball stuff, and we had stuff in stock way in advance, but of course there was another little problem. No barcodes on our mini albums, so they've had to be re-barcoded before they could leave the warehouse because everything's quite carefully stock controlled. So if you're waiting for Cloud of a Billion Lights, sorry, that's our bad again. I'm not quite sure how that happened, but they are on the way. You should get them later this week if you're in the UK, so thanks for your patience there. More patience. This is like a very apologetic news section, oh dear.
Yeah.
Concert CDs. Most of you have now got them. They've finally headed out after all this time, and I've seen lots of lovely comments and a couple of lovely emails. I'm sure we'll get to some next week. And in fact, I think we should have a trailer to get us a little bit more nostalgic and positive. So here is the concert CD trailer.
we are, milady. The Symphony Hall, Birmingham.
Excellent, Parker. And we're just in time for Stand By for Action, the music of Gerry Anderson.
Stingray, Stingray.
Quite, milady. Old consonant music from Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, UFO, Space 1999, and many more classic shows, brought to life by a full orchestra.
Stand By for Action.
Now available on CD from gerryanderson.com/music.
It's FAB.
Oh,
Lovely.
It does sound good. And lovely John and Genevieve there doing their fantastic Parker and Penelope. Now, for those of you who are waiting for the DVD and Blu-ray, they should, and I do say should, be arriving at our warehouse this week and will be turned around as rapidly as humanly possible. It's, again, been part of the learning process for how long it actually takes to get these things arranged when it comes to concerts. I won't be making that mistake again. But again, thank you all for your patience, and it is a lovely show. Lee Sullivan and I actually watched the entire show while we were signing the Fireball XL5 comic anthologies. And it was just such a lovely, emotional journey. We really enjoyed it. Now, I said I'd come back to Network's Night In. If you watched it, you may have seen some things trailed there. Now, I'm going to start with something very dear to my heart, Gerry Anderson, A Life Uncharted. Yes, finally, as we kind of intimated in previous podcasts, we'd hinted at various Q&As that Ben and I did during the screening of the theatrical tour. A Life Uncharted is coming to DVD and Blu-ray. Now, you can either pre-order it from Network on Air right now, or you can hang around and order it from the Gerry Anderson store on release day. Might mean you'll get it a few days later, up to you where you get it from, but DVD and Blu-ray with the extended edition. Now, Ben and I sat down, we've added about 21 minutes of new material, including why Roberta Lee thought he was an evil, evil man. Ooh, yes, I know you want to know the answer to that. And also, what Dad really thought of the Thunderbirds 2004 film, some very candid stuff there. Quite an interesting story. I did tell it actually in a few of the Q&As, but I don't think it's been put out on screen before, so hopefully you'll enjoy that. You will also have seen at Network's Night In, or you may have heard it since then, that the Super Colorization set is coming. So that means you can order a physical copy of the colour episodes, including Four Feather Falls and Supercar and Fireball XL5 that Network have done recently. I think we should talk on a future episode or future podcast why it's so tricky to do colorizations. We may have mentioned it before, but I think it's probably worth diving into in the future. And finally, as well as it being Halloween and very spooky, and happy Halloween if you celebrate that sort of thing, it is the last day that you can get our Thunderbirds Day 2022 t-shirts. So the designs with Scott and Virgil and the rest of the boys, done by the lovely Chris Thompson, they will be going away today, midnight on the 31st of October. So if you want to grab them, then grab them now or forever hold your peace. Whew. That is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson news.
That was the news, not very spooky news.
Sorry, I should have tried harder.
Yeah, it wasn't very spooky, was it? Well, you've got a year's notice, haven't you, to get some spooky news together for next Halloween.
I'll do my best. All
right. Good. Now, if you're on Facebook, you can join in our wonderful official podcast listeners group, facebook.com/groups/podsterons, like James Munro, who says, another great podcast this week, but alas, I was far from home in the tractor when it finished, so I had no snacks on hand. I think that must be the one where we were talking about Gerry Anderson related snacks. Says James, a thumbs up for the suggestion of UFO The Vault, and 2 thumbs up for Space Precinct The Vault.
Oh, another vote for Space Precinct.
Honestly,
it's a fix. It's a fix.
No, it's entirely unprompted. And when Chris Dale mentioned the pigeons in Venice, did any of them do a double take? Now, do you know what that's a reference to? Because I do.
I can't remember, so no.
It's a John Glenn story, isn't it?
Is it?
John Glenn, who famously directed several episodes of Space Precinct, also more famously perhaps directed a few Bond movies.
Well, you say more famously.
Yeah, and he had a little, one of his sort of what's the word? I'm going to say leitmotif.
Oh yes,
Yeah?
I like. Yes.
Yeah, was a pigeon that did a double take as something extraordinary happened. And there's in one of the Roger Moore Bond movies, Bond comes out of the water on a gondolier, which a gondola, which then inflates
On the gondolier,
and moves around.
on the person on the thing on his shoulders,
and it moves around Venice like a hovercraft, and it goes past a pigeon and it does a double take.
Amazing.
That's what he's referring to. In other news, I had to apologise, says James, to my D&D group last night for being late. The Fireball XL5 collection became available at the exact same time that the game starts, but thankfully I was able to pre-order a signed copy of this real boss collection.
Phew.
Crikey.
It is a lovely thing. I've got my copy right here. It's so chunky. It's 336 pages.
That's incredible.
It's amazing.
We talk about people joining our group all the time, and here's an example. Kenneth Quigg says, "Thank you for letting me join this amazing group. I started watching the podcasts," I guess that's on YouTube, "from number 217. Great fun to listen to the banter between Richard and Jamie." To which Steve Bushell replied, "Don't forget to leave a rating."
Thank you, Steve. I'm very glad
Yes.
that that's catching on.
That's right. That's what we like.
You know, we still have our last rating on Apple Podcasts is from July.
Yeah. Oh, come on,
It's getting a bit embarrassing now.
Come on. Pull your socks up. Keith
And then do a
says, I'd love
rating.
to... I'd love to give a big shout out to everyone at the Gerry Anderson store for the lovely surprise I got from the postie this morning, the delivery of my Electronic Alpha Launchpad set.
Hooray,
yes,
finally.
He says, I ordered it, well over a year ago. But that's not the store's fault. That's 1612's terrible business model. Perhaps I shouldn't have said that. It goes on to say, but
I was
this...
going to say, we don't endorse that comment, etc., etc. Yes, thank you.
But it's so big and so beautiful, says Keith. I want to break my golden rule and take it out of the box and play with it.
Yes.
Yeah, go on, Keith. Go on.
Have some joy. Go on.
Yeah, play with it. Do yourself a favour. Steve Ryder says, so is this a new game? Taking a drink every time Chris says, anywho?
Anywho?
Well, you see, you say that as well, Jamie.
I do. Isn't that strange?
Anywho, you do. Oh, I knew. Steve Cowan says, I've just been to the King's Arms, which has just been reopened after a refurb in Cookham, to ask about the disappearing Parker certificate.
Yes, what happened
The
there?
young guy behind the bar doesn't seem to know where it's gone, but said he'd look in the shed. I said I'd really like to see it reinstated for the first time, or rather the next time we're in here, as it's part of the history of the pub.
Exactly.
It's true.
Crucial
We went through
history.
all that effort. Yeah, we had David Graham there and everything.
I know, for the official opening.
Yeah, but there we are.
Tut. Okay.
Our very own Louise Everson asked, what was the first ever Gerry Anderson item you bought, and do you still have it? Emma Nichols says, my grandparents got me a Fab 1 car, and I still have it. To me, it's priceless. Mark Perkins says, bought for me? Well, that would be the first Stingray annual, which disappeared when I went to university, but luckily I've replaced it. Bought for myself? Well, that would be some copies of SIG, which I found hidden away in a second-hand bookshop, and which are still on my bookshelf. Simpsons Clips says, the first Anderson thing I bought, or rather had bought for me, was a Vivid Imaginations Thunderbird 2, which I still have. Paulette Rink says, first thing I bought was a Captain Scarlet paperback book, which I found at a garage sale. Okay, interesting. Mark Perkins says, here's an interesting one, Jamie. You might know the answer to this. I've just been watching the heist episode of New Captain Scarlet. Captain White meets his daughter in a very exclusive restaurant, but before the camera zooms in on them, I noticed a fellow diner. Does anyone else agree with me that he looks a little familiar? And there, in the restaurant, Jamie, sitting at a table, is a CGI rendition of someone who looks very like your dad.
I wonder...
Now, CJ List, he says, CJ List replies and said, I think they did scan a likeness of him to use in the series, so Gerry appears almost as much as Stan Lee.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't think they did that, but I don't know. There was a businessman character in an early episode, one of the first two, who ended up being crushed in a crusher inside his car. And then resurrected. I wonder if it might be based on that model, because that was a larger balding man.
Yeah.
I'll go and have a look. Oh, there was also a farmer that looked a bit like Dad that they built.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
Have to go and have a
Well,
look.
if you're on Facebook, join the Facebook group and have a look at the post there from Mark Perkins. Have a look at the picture and see what you think, and let us know if you think that could be a deliberate CGI likeness of Gerry himself in New Captain Scarlet.
Quite interesting. There you go. That means, if so, he appeared in Dick Spanner and New Captain Scarlet. So
right.
Great claims to fame.
Yeah.
Richard James.
That's it. No, all for now. Yes, Jamie.
Sorry, I should have said Anywho,
That's it.
yeah,
Take
I've
a
got
drink,
it.
everyone.
You see, glug.
Yeah.
Would you like the second part of my interview with Connor Flanagan? Because whether you like it or not, that's what you're getting.
Well, of course I would. Yes, bring him on.
Okay, fine. Well, Podsterons, if you're ever in Belfast, do stop by their local Forbidden Planet store, and you may spot the lesser spotted or communal garden, in this case, Connor Flanagan. No, I don't know which of those he is. They both sound offensive when you say them like that.
Yeah, they do. I'm glad you said them.
Anyway, Connor is lovely and is also a comic book artist who works in that shop where his book New Captain Scarlet, Operation Sabre, was launched early in the year. So for us at Anderson Entertainment, Connor drew Space Precinct Reloaded and most recently Operation Sabre, and he here shares with you his love and enthusiasm for all things comic book, comic art, and Anderson. So here's part 2 of 2. I'm always interested, though, especially for 90s kids who grew up rewatching Thunderbirds, what else was on your televisual radar? What was competing for your attention? Because you mentioned X-Men. I certainly remember early 90s, the X-Men cartoon, which was quite cool. I can hear the theme tune playing in my head now I mention it. But, you've got something that was made at that point only 26 years prior. That seems crazy now, but stuff up against stuff that was being made there and then for young audiences. So for you, how did Thunderbird sit against the context of other kids' shows?
Yeah, well, it was my favourite, frankly. I don't know.
Correct answer.
Yeah, well, it's true. I mean, it's a strange one because, I don't know if special effects had really reached that point in the 90s, because I also remember being exposed to reruns of the Irwin Allen shows, which I also absolutely loved, almost on par, I would say. Land of the Giants, Voice of the Bottom of the Sea, Lost in Space, all of those. And, in the early 90s, I don't think, well, obviously with things like Jurassic Park coming along very swiftly, CG changed in a big way, but I don't think that the shows of the day were so jarringly improved. Obviously they were improved in terms of effects, but not so much that those shows like Thunderbirds and that couldn't sit alongside them comfortably. But I still think that it comes back to that thing of lightning in a bottle. There are a lot of things that come together to make Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet, Stinger, all of those shows are just... There's more to it than just the one thing. There's the visual aspect, there's the audio aspect, all of those things. And one of the things I love, I guess I love the whole package. If we go back to that X-Men cartoon as well, obviously it's visually very interesting, but we talk about the theme tune, big on theme tunes. I was never more disappointed as we moved into sort of the Netflix age for a time there. It seemed that theme tunes and that had kind of gone away. Maybe that's not so much Netflix, but later in sort of syndicated TV series, they seem to cut the theme tunes. And I know my wife would very quickly push past the credits, but I'm a bit, I prefer to watch the credits. It's a bit of the experience. Your Deep Space Nine opening credits or your Star Trek Voyager opening credits, all that kind of stuff. So it's all part of it for me. But yeah, it's the whole package.
Absolutely, yeah, it is. It all kind of sets the scene, gets you in the mood, and particularly Thunderbirds with its kind of this episode excitement and tease.
I was also being exposed to a lot of things because I'm a huge horror nut. Horror fan is it's a bit of a juxtaposition there. A funny story. If we talk about Saturday morning cartoons and whether it should have happened or not. My dad had got a copy of Evil Dead 2 from the video store, and needless to say, Saturday morning cartoons took a turn for the nefarious when I put that on after Thundercats or He-Man or whatever it was. And
bit of a contrast.
Well, from an adult perspective, that's slapstick comedy with the horror and gore. But from a kid's perspective, watching that on a Saturday morning, I can tell you, it's anything but funny. So, but that was seared into my brain pan as well. And then obviously I fell in love with things like movies like Alien, James Cameron, or Aliens, I should say. But yeah, so big horror nut. Love all Friday the 13th and the Elm Streets and all that kind of stuff. I'm sort of fascinated by. I kind of look at those as sort of modern day Dracula, or specifically the Hammer horror Draculas and Frankensteins, specifically. And I remember always being fascinated. How are they going to bring him back this time? How is he going to come back? Even though it's sort of written after the fact. But I always find it funny the ludicrous ways they, whether it be by lightning or strike or what have you. But I love all that stuff as well. So obviously my interests are broad.
But that's beneficial, right? Lots of things, again, creatively feeding you. So we track your Anderson and comic book collecting through to your teens, and then do we park your comic book aspirations for a little while? Is that how it went?
I think they were always still there, but when I moved to university and I was studying illustration. I'd actually gone to Dunleary in Dublin for a time and was studying animation. Didn't like that too much.
Mm-hmm.
I found that it requires something else other than being able to draw. There's an element of, an element of acting involved, and in terms of the timing and stuff. And I've seen a couple of guys that were doing stuff. Maybe I would have caught on had I stayed with it longer, but I didn't feel it was feeding that creative side that I was looking to go down. So again, it was sort of going off path a little bit there, I think, with the allure of the video end. And then I went further off path because I directly went down the video end. I think the writing was on the wall, but I wasn't paying attention. But it sort of led me into making short films and stuff in university, none of which will ever see the light of day because they're awful.
Oh, shame.
Yeah, there was one in particular. It was a comedy science fiction, sort of in the vein of Red Dwarf, and that was called Constellation Q. It was hammy and terrible in so many ways, but yeah. And
I feel like I want to see it now, Connor.
In fact, cut that.
No, we're keeping it out,
okay.
and I want to see it. Okay, so again, but still needed creative outlets, though. You were still going down that route.
And just a thought that pops into my mind, and it was something that I never got to do. And you'll know, obviously, from the launch of Captain Scarlet, the little things I was doing, like button badges and prints and flyers and things like this.
Yeah,
those were all the kinds of things that I wanted to do at that time. Because, as I say, it's the whole package. I wanted, when I was making those short films and handing them up for end of year, I wanted a mug, I wanted a poster, I wanted the badges, I wanted the action figure, I wanted all of those things. I wanted to see it as essentially a brand or a franchise thing. But unfortunately, those things were just not possible at the time. Again, I can do it. We can all do these things. We can print from home. We can. We've got Photoshop. We've got all these things. A lot of it's hard to believe that even 20 years ago, some of this stuff was still in its infancy. And if we go back to Chris Thompson and the things that he's doing from home, I mean, if we talk of university, in fact, I remember one of the things that I used to do on a Friday. I used to go across to the library, and I used to go on the internet, and this comes back to the horror thing, but also the Anderson thing. The two things that I used to look up: New Captain Scarlet, to find out where it was in its production, when the next Halloween movie was coming out. So weird, but that's so true. That's exactly the two things that I used to check up on, and the internet was terrible at that time. There was no resources. You couldn't find that kind of information. But I knew it was out there, and obviously I knew to expect it at a later date. So yeah. So it's a lovely memory, because obviously then getting to work on the comic and stuff and being involved with you guys is just lovely little journey,
Well, yeah, but it's a nice journey, I think, for everyone to kind of follow along and for us to see as well. So it's all worked out very nicely. So let's land on the new Scarlet Operation Sabre in that case, then, Connor. So you've done a previous thing with Chris with Space Precinct Reloaded, and then he comes back to you and says, "How about the next thing?" Is that what happened? How did this kind of spiral up? Also, how did it spiral up from being let's do a 20-page comic to let's do a 102-page graphic novel?
Yeah, well, I think Space Precinct was received very well, but obviously I had my own misgivings of my abilities and stuff. But I was very, very proud of it, and I was very, very proud of the journey that it went on. I was delighted that I got to stick around. I think Chris had possibly mentioned that Scarlet might be possible. And I think very early on I did a few sketches. And I actually ended up, I must have done the cover very, very early on. Obviously, it went through a number of iterations before it finally ended up being what it was. But more or less, there are elements of it that remain. And I think one of the big things as well, so it must have been about a year before we really kicked it off fully and really got down to the nitty gritty of it, because I remember spending a lot of time going off and learning how to colour. I'd sort of seen in my mind that I could do it, but I just didn't quite know how to do it. So I had to go off and learn that, basically. So I spent about a year just working on some of my own little projects and just learning how to colour, basically. And then by the time we got round to actually beginning, I think I had just got about enough knowledge under my wings to be able to actually run with that. So I pitched it to Chris, and he was happy enough to let me do it. So yeah, and as I say, as we move forward through that, I think I've been guilty in the past of drawing more than I should in instances. I think there's a point where colour specifically will fill those gaps for you. So it's knowing when to jump off, but that's only learned through experience and through error and stuff. So that was the big thing in this project, definitely, was the use of colour and how that evolved and changed how I approach things overall. So.
And particularly crucial for an organisation like Spectrum, which is so
absolutely
so colourful.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah, and I'm pretty proud of the outcome. I see it there in the shop on the shelf. It's been doing very well, I might add. I would say we sell like a couple of copies every other day, so it's still moving very well. And most people have commented on the colour. I'm particularly happy people picking up on certain things like using colour to create distance. Putting it over the inks and stuff to sort of things that I wasn't aware that I was doing for any specific reason other than I thought it would be. That's kind of what you would do. So people have picked up on little things like that. So it's really nice to hear those comments.
Yeah. No, I think you've come up with something really, really stunning looking and really dynamic, and conveys the excitement, and lots of the feedback that we've seen online echoes that for sure. But when Chris presents you with a script, essentially, what's sort of a quick breakdown of your process from script to page? I mean, do you see certain panel suggestions from him and go, oh God, how am I going to do that? Or do other ones kind of leap out at you as you can instantly visualize it? So just run us through a kind of quick, kind of bullet pointed version of the process, Connor.
So I get a script from Chris. It's very easy for me because we're very like-minded, and I include Andrew in this as well because obviously his own script. But it's about knowing the characters and knowing the franchises, and those guys know them like the back of their hand, and they know the big story moments and they know the big character moments. So instantaneously, as soon as I read those pages, I know exactly what they're looking for because I know the characters too, and I know the franchise as well. So extremely easy. One of the things that I do, I am obviously looking for those big action moments, but one of the things I specifically look for page by page is of this specific page, what is the big action moment? What makes this page interesting to me? What makes it really sing? So I will go for whatever that is, and I will build the rest of the page around that. So it may be the big focal point. It may be the first panel, which is taking up most of the page. It may be the last panel. But essentially, what is that specific moment? So I try to make the pages interesting to myself because, you can have talking moments and it's just talking heads, and that's fun enough to draw. But if it's Scarlet getting thrown off a bridge, or if it's the Angels launching from Skybase, then it's probably a process like they do in film as well. It's looking for those key moments and then jotting down a few sketches and things and just going from there. Funnily, as I moved into the digital end, I tend to not really have to sketch things too much. I kind of just move straight into it. So, if you're moving towards a specific moment on a page, you can kind of build the other stuff around it. Because when I was working on paper, I found I was very cut and paste at times. I would make mistakes and stick a piece of paper over the top, or I would cut something else and transplant it to another page. If you're working in Photoshop or if you're working digitally, you do that instinctively anyway. So, and it's very easy to undo a mistake. So I think it's been very intuitive working on a drawing tablet and stuff, because that seems to be the way that I work. It's just taken me a while to find the technology, I guess, to see where I'm comfortable working. You know, not to say I'm unhappy on paper. It's just I've just found I move a lot quicker when drawn digitally, for sure. So,
and that's part of the process when you've got 100 odd pages to get through. I guess.
Exactly. Yes.
So, of those 100 pages of that work on Sabre, kind of what was the biggest challenge? And that could be a panel, a page, an entire story, a character, whatever. And what was what's the thing you're most happy with at the end of it?
I think the stresses really came in sort of the time frame. I was acutely aware that it was taking a long time to do, but you know, in my mind, it was taking a long time, but also it wasn't taking a long time. It was taking as much time as I could do on it, which was every other waking hour, other than when I was in work, and I was in work a lot. So whilst it took over a number of years to produce, if you condense that down, it probably isn't that. But yeah, that put a lot of stresses sort of on me to sort of deliver that, because I really wanted to deliver something really special as well. So, and obviously I was putting pressure on myself to improve and get better and really do honor those sort of previous strips and stuff, because you know, I just don't want to put something out there. I want to put something out there that is happy sitting beside a Frank Noble strip, or I'm sorry, a Mike Noble strip, or you know, beside a Frank Bellamy strip, or you know, that I can see it there and feel comfortable that, you know, I've given it my all, basically. So
yeah, okay. So, but do you now look back and think, yeah, okay, I'm happy with that, or do you do the usual creative thing of entirely just looking and finding fault with it, which you should not do?
It's a funny thing. You see, as soon as I received a copy of that book, I have to say, you know, all those anxieties that I've been having, just faded away straight away. And you know, if there were any things to nitpick, it would just be nitpicking, because it's a beautiful book. Honest, it really is. And you know, the quality, the production of the book, the paper and everything is just. Because I'm a strong believer. You know, there was a time when there was this fear that digital comics were going to take over to some degree, and I understand the sort of the thought process behind digital comics and how useful that'll be if you're on an airplane or what have you. Yeah. But you have to travel light. But you know, there's an art in getting something to paper, and you know, that was one of the things. I printed every single page that I produced at home. I was looking at it on paper long before it ever went to paper, essentially, for the book, to make sure that things looked as I wanted them to look, and you know, to pick up on mistakes and things. So I really understand how difficult it is to put something on paper and give people a product that, you know, is really, really professional, essentially. So I couldn't be more proud of it, honestly. It's just, and you know, it's weird to see it sitting on the shelf. It'll catch my eye from time to time. You know, you have to understand this. The image of Scarlet against the brick wall was in my, you know, on the front of my folder in my workroom for a number of years, and I was so keen to share it with everybody and really couldn't. And you know, to suddenly see it there is such a thrill. It just, honestly, it's just lovely seeing it on there. And obviously, you see people picking it up and browse through it. And a couple of people have bought it, and you sort of ask them, you know, well, what caught your eye or what was interesting about it, and you get different responses on that one. But and I'm not even too worried about the people who pick it up and then put it back down again, as long as they picked it up.
Can't be for everyone. Yeah, I mean, it's very much like the world we live in now, you know, with thumbnails on carousels and tiles on streaming platforms and stuff. You know, you've got 3 seconds to grab somebody's attention. So if they picked it up, that's the equivalent of them clicking on a title. And if they flick through it, that's the equivalent of them watching the first 10, 15 minutes of a TV show. And if they then buy it, then they've committed to the whole series. So, I mean, you know, it's interesting talking about the whole comic process, because really once the writer hands over their script, the way you're talking about it, you are then doing the storyboarding, the direction, the design, the post-production. You know, in the kind of TV equivalent or the film equivalent, you're taking on multiple departments worth of roles and then handing your baby over to get it manufactured and printed. So I'm very glad you're happy with the outcome.
And you know, maybe I should have just stayed away from the video end of things anyway, because you know, ultimately that's exactly what you're doing. You know, you're getting to do all of that stuff. You know, trying out every single role. So yeah,
it's kind of more exciting, isn't it?
Very cool thing.
So here's a challenge for you, Connor, as we sort of wrap up this chat. There'll be lots of listeners who think, I'm not really a comics person, I'm not really a graphic novel person. So for you as someone who enjoys multimedia stuff, as I know you listen to audio drama, you read and draw and colour comics, and you've worked in video, and obviously you watch content too. What is the draw for comic books and graphic novels versus other media? Not to compete against them, but if you're a regular viewer of classic or even new Captain Scarlet episodes, why should one make the leap to giving Operation Sabre or any other comic title a try?
Interesting question, and a difficult question, but
I like to throw in at least one tricky one.
Let me ponder this one.
I mean, because I have to, for me, as kind of devil's advocate and just showing my perhaps ignorance, in the past I have found comic stuff perhaps a more inaccessible medium, but to look at it and find yourself lost in the depths of the detail and being able to consume it in a different way makes it more engaging. And it's stuff like Reloaded and Sabre which has kind of actually made me enter that world and find some pleasure in it. So there's some nice praise for you there. Is that the general appeal?
Yeah, well, I think, well, I don't want to say historically, but certainly, from my past, there's always been a point of view that maybe comics are a little juvenile, and maybe not a valid medium. I remember in school wanting to, when you'd have to do book reports or do book, you'd have to read so many books in the year or whatever it might be, and I wanted to add Asterix or Tintin books into that, and I remember my teacher being quite, not so much, no. That kind of stayed with me, but and I think obviously there is an element of that in comics that they are for kids and so on and so forth. But specifically my generation and certainly a couple of generations before, when they grew up with comics, and you'll find that something like a Batman title today, or even Captain Scarlet, Operation Sabre for sure, they've kind of grown up with the people who were watching them. So if you get too old to watch Saturday morning cartoons, which I don't believe you do, but if you do, the comic medium is probably an extension of that in a way, because you can sort of, you can still get those 2D cartoon visuals, but specifically with a lot of modern day comics, some of them can be quite adult, of course. You can have something that's not. So it's very hard to watch maybe the cartoons of yesteryear, from an adult's viewpoint, because they feel a little, certainly juvenile is the word, but it can be difficult to just enjoy them as you did, because you can sort of see the holes in them in that way. But the comic book, because they're written by adults for adults essentially now, because even if we go back to Forbidden Planet, we find it very difficult to sell or find comics that are suitable for very younger age range. Obviously there's stuff that exists, but it's not as plentiful as you'd imagine, because a lot of comics tend to border on, I don't want to say adult storytelling, but certainly more mature themes. So, if you're looking to revisit those shows of yesteryear, but you feel that they can't give you what you once took from them, then certainly, a comic book or even the audios or what have you will certainly give you that fix that you're looking for. I think. I say written for adults by adults in most instances. Yeah. So that would be the key thing there.
The medium has matured, like you say, with the creators and with the readers actually. So it is something very, very accessible.
And also pick Captain Scarlet, Operation Sabre up, because we worked so hard on it. I give everything in the kitchen sink to it. So just buy it. Just go and buy it, because it's absolutely, it means everything to me. It's very personally important to me, and obviously no one's going to understand that journey or know that journey, but I love it, and I just want people to get fun.
I hope that they will, from listening to you talk, and you can hear the passion that comes out of you and is clearly gone onto the page, and that's clear. And I think a lot of the stuff for us that is most successful with fans has had that passion and love poured into it, as with the original TV shows. people loved making these things, and so then people love to consume and enjoy them, so I'm sure they will on Sabre. And as Connor says, if you haven't bought it yet, go and buy it now, or else Connor will send the boys round, specifically Captain Black. So, Connor, if any listeners want to follow you on social media, where are you? I know you've recently signed up to Twitter and a couple of other places, so how can they find you there?
You can find me at Flanavision on Twitter and also at Flanavision on Instagram. You can also hit me up on Facebook. I've been working hard to make sure I'm more visible out there. So this is just the beginning. So please come and follow me on this crazy journey I'm hopefully going on. So it should be fun. Lots of exciting things to come, hopefully. So
yeah, no, I think there's a really lovely, like I said, an inspirational angle to this of kind of, returning to perhaps abandoned or sidelined dreams and all that kind of stuff. And I'm very glad that you're doing that with us, Connor. So thanks for your amazing work.
Thank you so much.
Potterons, go and buy Operation Sabre. You can buy it at ander.sun/Sabre if it's still in stock, and if not, then you'll have to wait for a reprint, won't you?
Forbidden Planet or anywhere else that sells great books.
Or Forbidden Planet International. Absolutely, that's the other place to grab it. Awesome, Connor. Thanks so much. Really great chatting to you.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Take care. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Connor. Have you enjoyed that? And I
nice.
love the contrasting people we speak to. Both kind of in the publishing world here for the last 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
Chris Bentley's been doing this for a long time and multiple different books, but all kind of historical documentary. And then here we are with Connor with the very creative, telling a new story. Anyway, look, you can follow Connor on Twitter and Instagram at Flanavision. And remember that the digital edition of Operation Sabre is coming out very soon. In fact, may already be out by the point you hear this. And you can get it on Comixology, via Kindle, Amazon, and a few other places. So just have a look on the Gerry Anderson store or gerryanderson.com for more info. Woo.
Yes. Well done. Now, do remember, if you're listening to us, I know you're listening to us, but while you're listening to us, why not subscribe to us on whichever platform you're listening to?
Spookscribe to us?
Spookscribe, okay. That way you get a notification every time a new podcast appears. And also you can leave us a nice rating. Give us a 5-star review and leave a few nice words for us. And that'll help bump us up in the algorithm so everyone else can hear us too. And why not even copy the link, post it on all your socials and say, I'm listening to the Gerry Anderson podcast and I think you should too.
Oh, just that phrase. That's great.
Yes,
say
that's
that.
Right. Yeah,
do it
exactly.
now.
Yeah. Meanwhile, over on YouTube, people have been commenting beneath Pod 227 from a couple of weeks ago. Betsy Lee says, is the Captain Scarlet book The Vault still available? I'm just wondering, is all. And yes, I still enjoy all these podcasts. They're so wonderful. This would be good for my birthday if it's still available, and for Thanksgiving too.
Oh, Scarlet the Vault's long gone, and I don't think it's ever going to come back. I'm sorry. Okay. Keep an eye out for second-hand versions. That's the best I can offer.
Yeah, fair enough. Steve Wilson says, I hope Chris's idea of a UFO The Vault book gets off the ground. Yes, that would be good.
Fingers crossed.
He doesn't mention space Precinct.
Oh, how strange.
Odd. Yeah. John Clay says, good podcast. Okay, yeah. I'll settle for that. I'll take that. He says, I've even been listening to themes from Doppelganger, engaging cinematography from John Reed. Also, do you remember in Fab Facts we discussed the idea that Gerry had actually been bought a plot on Mars?
Yes, the Fab Fact from last week? Before?
Oh, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Randall Scott says, I was gifted a plot of land on the moon a while back. I must check if it's anywhere near or even on the location of the Shadow Moon Base or Moonbase Alpha. If it is, should I charge rent to the appropriate organisations?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Send some backdated invoices across to the World Space Commission if I were you.
Yeah, that's right. Minicle says, turns out the real reasons why the aliens from UFO were coming to Earth was because they kept buying each other pieces of land. Yeah, you see,
came to claim their plot of Earth, yeah.
That's right. People got very excited, of course, about the Fireball XL5 60th anniversary comic anthology.
As they should.
And there was a wonderful trailer on YouTube as well, and you can see it there. Calvin Sky says, this is real boss. The Fireball strips were some of my favourites in the Century 21 collections, and it's great to see them all together, plus a new crossover story.
Yes.
Peter UK says, I've already ordered my signed copy. I love the music. It's bringing back so many childhood memories. Paul Kinnear finally says, I dithered for around 5 seconds before going for the signed edition. XL5 is my favourite Anderson show, and the print will be getting framed, going up on my bedroom wall.
Brilliant. You're going to love it.
Cool.
It's a beautiful little print of Fireball Jr. from Lee there. Gorgeous stuff.
Nice. So, yeah, do have a look over at the Gerry Anderson official YouTube channel. There's all sorts of things to enjoy there, from free episodes to primers to Beyond Anderson documentaries to the Fab Facts to special interviews and launch videos, all sorts.
You're right. A huge variety of gubbins.
Yes, that's true. That's right. Oh, I must just mention, actually, meanwhile, over on Twitter, well, Genevieve Gaunt.
Yes, lovely Genevieve, also known as Lady Penelope.
Exactly, the new voice of Lady Penelope, says, she tweeted that she was at Clifton Literary Festival, Clifton Lit Fest today. She says, I was dressed by Chanel and realised I'd done an homage to Lady Penelope. She posted a few pictures of herself looking rather fetching in pink, and then, of course, goes on to say that AC, who we also know well, tells me that Clifton was used as the location for the Crichton Ward mansion in the film. All that I was missing was Fab 1.
Oh, if only we'd known, we could have organised it.
That was literally around the corner from me, so yes. But there we are. So good old Genevieve Gaunt, flying the flag for all things Anderson.
She always is, bless her.
Even by accident.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's great.
Genius move.
Yeah, lovely. Yes, all for now. Yeah, do come along. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Twitter. Hashtag us Gerry Anderson Podcast. And tag me, Richard N. James, and him over there, I'm Jamie Anderson.
You're right
him
there.
over there, Chris Darling. All that stuff. Just do it.
Do you need a wee or something? You're sounding a bit cross-legged now.
Not at all. No, I'm fine. I just think people should just really get involved with as much as they can, because it's all out there for you to enjoy.
Yes.
And I wouldn't want you to miss anything.
Absolutely. Well,
really wouldn't.
If you made it this far, then you really don't want to miss out on what's next, because it's the thing that really everybody actually they really care about, basically.
I think that's fair enough,
So you don't have to worry, it's not trick or treat at this end of the podcast.
Right, yeah.
It's all treat, no trick.
It is. It really is, yeah.
Well, unless we get torchy, and then it really is a trick. So let's see what happens. So Chris Dale, also known as the Randomiser, is here to, with assistance or without it, choose a random episode from all of the Gerry Anderson body of work and watch it for your listening pleasure. He'll talk you through it, give you some observations, say some funny things, and you'll know a bit more about the episode by the end of it. How's that?
Yeah, sounds good. That's a deal, isn't it?
Okay, it's time to have some skelly fun on the Randomiser. Okay, over to you, Chris. Bye.
Lieutenant's the thing we're parodying here. I was looking round the jungle, seeing the rough and tumble. The avenues and alleyways were coming alive. Abel and his brother were having yet another minor disagreement. I kept on the move till the daytime turned into night, then ducked into the nearest watering hole for a spot of refreshment. I asked the barman for a Tennent's Pilsner. The cool taste was out of this world. Fingers and his mob were at their usual table, casting fearsome shadows on the wall behind them. A squealer passed me a Randomiser selection. I'd read about how he died in the morning paper. But until then, I had a choice. Finish my Tennent's Pilsner, or settle down to watch one of my favourite episodes of Captain Scarlet. It was close, but in the end, duty calls. Tennent's Pilsner. It's good, but not that good.
Leading the fight, one man fate has made indestructible. His name, Captain Scarlet.
So, get your, I don't know what's on, because it's time for some Captain Scarlet. I don't know where I was going there. I think it's just the very spooky opening shot we have here of Mars, instantly, just from the first shot. You know, this episode is going to be a bit different, because I think that's probably the first time we've actually seen Mars since the first episode. So it's like, instantly we're like, whoa, back to the origins of the series, back to this crucial element of the show that we haven't really revisited since it started. And here we have K14 Observatory in the Himalayas with a little tiny SPV out the front of it. It's a lovely model, very intricate. I don't think it quite establishes how the SPV gets there. I see there's a little bridge, but it doesn't seem to connect to a road, which is interesting. I suppose the SPV doesn't need any roads, does it? And here we go. Inside the observatory, we find Captain Scarlet and Blue, and 3 men.
First picture transmission starts in 35 seconds.
3 scientists, I should say. And I notice in the control room they also have that computer prop from Renegade Rocket.
Spotted it.
with the word 0, I think, still illuminated on it.
Right on target. 21,000 miles from Mars.
And instantly, something I have to mention with this episode, which is one I find people either love or hate, but I find the music in this is just superb. I mean, listen to that.
10 seconds.
Buildings swell as this little probe approaches Mars and then gets exploded.
0. Start transmission.
Yeah, that's definitely the desk from Renegade Rocket. You can see the little readout unit that Major Reeves stole. So what's going on? This is all very suspicious and intriguing.
Have we done it?
We won't know for nearly 4 minutes. Mars is about 43 million miles away. It'll take that long for the signals to reach us.
That is, if the Mysterons haven't already destroyed the satellite. I'll report to Cloud Base.
So we're actually taking the fight to the Mysterons for a change in this episode, it seems, which is very nice, very refreshing.
What's the latest situation, Captain Blue?
And I love that the Mysterons just destroy the satellite as it approaches. Just they can do that. We don't even have to explain if there's a defense screen around the planet or whatever. They don't want it there. Boom. Bye-bye satellite.
Rate our chances, Captain Scarlet. Well, it's hard to deceive the Mysterons, but there's always a chance.
Yeah, let's cling to that. 150 seconds left. But yeah, that music, I love that with obviously Barry Gray didn't score music for every episode of the show. It was, he'd maybe, I think with Captain Scarlet there's maybe like a dozen that he scored out of the 32. And it's always interested me which episodes were deemed worthy of a new score. Was it just that the setting was so unusual?
Check video.
I just did.
Well, do it again.
Oh, sniping and snapping at each other, very nice. Yeah, was it just that the setting was a bit unusual, we need a bit more music, or was there a sense sometimes of, this is a better episode, this is going to be a classic, let's put a bit more into this on the music front? And yeah, so much of this would go on to be reused throughout the series, and quite right too. It's just beautiful music. And a nice pan across the observatory dish here. I like also that it's in a very remote area of the Himalayas. There's no people or buildings or anything around. It's just this one remote outpost and these 3 guys who seem to get on all right, but bit of friction there earlier.
20 seconds.
Stand by. Start video recording.
15 seconds.
Now.
And also I think this is a really good episode for just hearing the voice actors bounce off each other as these 3 scientists. There's a real natural energy to this.
Lost the signal. Check it. No possible doubt. It's been destroyed.
2 seconds before the first picture transmission.
Oh, bother. Yeah, 2 seconds. And yet...
Mysterons have destroyed the satellite. Phase 1 complete according to plan.
Oh, has Scarlet turned on us? No, apparently this is all part of the plan.
This is the voice of the...
I'd forgotten about this, yes.
We know that you can hear us, Earthmen.
We've had a bit of a helium leak on Mars, but still try to take us scarily.
Been destroyed.
Yeah, I've heard that Donald Gray inhaled helium to do the voice of the Mysterons, and then it was digitally pitched down. I don't know how true that is.
Of the Mysteron.
But this episode kind of makes me believe it.
Will be avenged.
That he's done the voice and then it's not been pitched down for whatever reason. But, even if the Mysterons sound a bit silly, Captain Black, who is not in this episode actually, but Captain Black will not have been sucking on helium. Let's check in with Cloudbase.
Members of Spectrum, as you have heard, the first satellite launched to orbit Mars and relay pictures to Earth has been destroyed by the Mysterons.
Oh, no.
This was, of course, anticipated.
We were prepared to fail.
Continue as planned. As K-14 Observatory...
I like this shot of the other captains and the Angels just kind of sitting around, having reads of books and drinking coffees and things.
...of the observatory in the Himalayas.
It does look a bit of a boring life.
Aerial surveillance.
If you're not Captain Scarlet or Captain Blue.
All Spectrum personnel are on red alert.
Here we go.
This exercise is part of a larger plan. Operation Sword.
Operation Sword, of which we are not explained fully what this is, nor is it ever mentioned again after this episode. But here we have an interesting sequence. We are going to move Cloud Base. And I look at the footage of Cloud Base moving, these engines powering up to move the base. And it looks to me like stock footage. It just looks... It has that sort of slightly worn look to the footage. And I've always wondered if this was meant to be like a regular thing with Cloud Base. They shot this footage at the start of the series.
Well, looks like we're underway.
Thank you for that, Captain Grey. See, Captain Grey, that's his job for the day. He looks out the window and tells us that we're on our way. I said they didn't have much to do. But yeah, I've always wondered if that footage was shot at the front of the series on the expectation that Cloud Base would be moving around all the time, and then they never did it. And then with this episode, they thought, well, we've got that footage, we may as well use it here. Again, I have no evidence to support the idea that that footage wasn't shot for this episode. But there's something about the footage, it just looks to me like this is stock footage, it's been hanging around for a while, let's get some use out of it. Meanwhile, more spooky music and spooky space shots.
I have the mini-satellite under infrared track.
Because we're sending in another satellite. Minisat 5.
Touchdown in 2 minutes.
Let's hope the Mysterons don't detect this one.
Well, we're tracking it by infrared reflection of the sun's rays from the satellite shell. At least there's no transmission for them to pick up.
Adam, why did you tell me something I already know? Oh, it's for the audience, Captain Scarlet. Yeah, I'm not keen on that very wobbly little Martian moon. I like that they've tried to...
is keeping the Martian moon between itself and the Mysteron.
To create that impression of the moon orbiting Mars as the probe comes towards it. Because this is great stuff. The probe reversing and firing and jettisoning its sort of canopy bits and such. But just that moon, that little tiny moon, makes me smile. It looks like a meatball. Yes. It's the music with this.
It's altered course as scheduled.
Does so much on the atmosphere front. Not only in space, I mean, we spend more time in space in this episode than any other episode of the series, I think, in terms of, not being on the ground as such. And it's, Minisat 5 has deployed its contents of a little satellite with legs and a face. He's got a face on it, which I find quite sweet. Oh my goodness, the music is just knocking it out of the park this week. A lot of it isn't even like listenable music as such, it's just atmosphere and this. It's wonderful at building this dread and tension throughout this story.
Wonderful. Well, we've succeeded.
Hooray for us.
A small satellite on the Martian moon Phobos.
And without the Mysterons detecting it.
Right. Phobos orbits Mars every 7 hours, 40 minutes. And our mini-sat will get a free ride right round the planet. Every 7 seconds. It will take a photograph.
Yay, that's what this was all about, photos.
300 hours tonight, after it's completed one orbit.
Gentlemen, we're about to obtain the best close-up shots of Mars ever taken by man.
Hooray!
A lot of work ahead. I suggest we all get some rest.
Get some sleep as well, Captain Blue. I'll take the first watch.
Right. I'll relieve you at midnight.
I just love that. We've succeeded, now off to bed. Oh, there's that meatball moon again. But, I love that this satellite seems to have a little face. It's got 2 eyes, a nose, and a lot of teeth. I have a feeling also this prop was seen in later episodes. It was parts of various bases, always in the background. I think it was in Arctic Adventure, the sea base in that, in Joe 90. I could listen to this atmosphere music all day, having said that it's not very listenable. It's some of space atmosphere music in these shows is a bit sort of samey, but considering there's so much in this episode, it's really great stuff. And here we go, nighttime at the observatory. And the music that established the observatory earlier on has taken a bit of a calmer, chiller air here. It's all a bit quiet. They've turned the lights off. I also love that they've got this. Being an observatory, they have this wonderful telescope prop that really they don't get a lot of use out of in this episode, and I don't recall seeing it turn up anywhere else, but hey-ho. Scarlet's on guard, but there's a shadowy figure. A shadow of fear? No, it's the shadow of someone else.
It's only me. Sorry if I startled you.
Oh, Dr. Breck.
It's him.
I thought you were in bed.
Well, I couldn't sleep. What time is it?
And an interesting thing about this episode, and we can mention it with Dr. Breck here, is that this is the final episode that Paul Maxwell and Charles Tingwell recorded voices for. I guess they had other work to go to after this episode. It's interesting that they both had to leave at the same point. I'm sure they weren't working on the same project. Maybe they were, who knows? Maybe they had a stage show or something to get to.
Yes, its course was carefully plotted so that Phobos always shielded the satellite from Mars.
So it's nice that they both get key guest roles in this episode.
In the shadow of fear.
Here's the explanation.
Phobos, the Greek word for fear.
Aha.
The shadow of fear.
Everything all right?
Very nice title.
Captain Blue.
Well, it's midnight. I'll take over the watch, Captain Scarlet.
Right. I'll get some sleep.
Considering you've all slept.
I suggest you get some rest.
I'm indestructible. I don't get to sleep when everyone else does.
We'll try and get an hour or so.
I'm going to check outside. Good night.
Good night, Captain.
What's he think's going to be happening outside? Oh well, who knows. But that leaves Dr. Breck alone with the telescope looking at Mars, which is starting to glow.
Strange.
And I know some people have criticised this this way to kill Dr. Breck in terms of, dramatic explanation of what is actually happening here. I kind of like it. I think it's a bit eerie. I like that he's kind of hypnotised by this bright light. Mars is just suddenly glowing. It is very creepy. And he can't take his eyes off it.
The light, it's so intense. I can't... Pulsating light.
There's some great last words. Pulsating light. Mars has gone back to normal, and Dr. Breck is dead. And this is one of the, I feel, the greatest mystronization sequences in history. Not only the puppet is quite a good looking puppet, I think, and it's a shame he was rarely used in other episodes. Also love that Blue is outside oblivious. But it's this shot. We focus on Breck's feet as the body is dragged away by someone. Someone has to be doing that dragging. And we drag Breck's body past Mr. On Breck's feet, and there's that wonderful pan up. Of course, he is now a Mr. On. He is Mr. On Breck. And he's just about to admit it to Captain Blue here. Of course, Blue doesn't quite get it. It's just the sight of Breck standing there like a total zombie.
Dr. Breck, are you all right?
Well, what do you think?
Fine, Captain. I'm fine.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Off to bed with you. It's that. I'm fine. It's just any Spectrum officer on seeing that should immediately think that's as good as a signed confession that you are a Mr. On now. But no one seems to twig.
Time?
01:58.
Just over an hour to go. Right, Lieutenant. Launch all Angels.
Angel 1, immediate launch.
And nighttime footage of the Angels launching. This happened a couple of times. I want to say this is the first episode it happened in. It's not a very notable occurrence, but I just thought I'd bring that up. More nice music. Even the Angels get a little bit of new music here this week.
Aerial surveillance.
Oh, it's lovely.
Observe radio silence, except in an emergency.
And it had better be a good emergency. We don't want to hear from you otherwise. So, I don't like, though, that Angels 2 and 3 take off much slower than they would in daytime in that footage.
The astronomers.
And at the observatory, it's not going well.
He can't have gone. I've looked everywhere. He's not in the observatory. He must be found. There's less than an hour before transmission.
His bed hasn't been slept in. Dr. Breck is definitely not in the building.
Well, you were the last one to see him. Why did he go after you had him?
Close to success. Nothing must go wrong.
I love as well looking at the observatory. The model department have gone to so much effort in creating the structure of this base, the detail, and that's reflected in this shot here of the rotation gear housing room. It's going to be used to rotate the satellite later as someone snuck in with a few sticks of dynamite, some woolly gloves and a woolly hat. It's our Mistron friend, Dr. Breck. And also you have to wonder, when Breck's body was being dragged out earlier, who was doing the dragging? Maybe Captain Black was there, because it's happening in the way it would do if a human was doing it. It wasn't in one continuous slide. It was slide, stop, and so on.
Most certainly in the hands of the Mistrons.
But who cares?
Go ahead with the project. I will order the Spectrum helicopter to fly as low as possible over the area, in the hope that it may spot him. Meantime,
good plan.
Preparations for the...
I also like with this episode, as we said, this is Paul Maxwell and Charles Stingwell's last episode, so they let Paul Maxwell play the Mistron for a change.
Let's get to the computer.
I don't think he had played any Mistrons up to this point, so that's a nice change of pace for him. Do one Mistron before he left. Usually, I think if you were to sort of look at the voice actors and see which among them did the most Mistrons or played the most Mistrons, it would be Gary Files, by a considerable margin.
That's for sure. Let's get a Mistron detector from the SPV.
Yeah, just in case we come across any other Mistrons that aren't Dr. Breck.
Bang on the nose. We're in business. Could you get a fix on the beam width and flux density?
I also like that once Breck disappears, these two just carry on quite efficiently without him. It's almost as if they didn't really need three guys.
Just in case the Mistrons are trying to pinpoint our position.
Yeah, well, there's no evidence to indicate that the Mistrons know where you are, except that one of your colleagues has gone missing and presumably is now a Mistron.
Keep looking. Time's running out.
Oh, it's winter jacket time. Yeah, Blue gets a winter jacket for this episode, as does Captain Grey, because this seems to have been a let's give Paul Maxwell a proper send-off episode. We get Captain Grey up on the Spectrum helicopter, using his Mistron detector to try and find Dr. Breck. We have Paul Maxwell searching for Paul Maxwell, oddly enough.
That could be him.
Captain Scarlet, I think Captain Grey has located Breck.
And Melody gets winter gear as well. This is fun, though. This sudden bank turn of the helicopter, and it almost makes me sort of half want to do a spoof where Grey falls out of the door, because it's just so sudden and so sharp. But it's great to see the helicopter in action. It's great to see Melody and Grey teaming up for a change. I like the helicopter. It
we found him.
Doesn't get too much use in the series.
SIG Melody. Well, Captain Blue, he's in the rocks above us.
Let's go.
Check video.
Video positive.
It's so, it's such a testament to the people who made these shows that you have Blue gets a winter coat here, which he later wore again in Noose of Ice, so okay, they knew they were going to get some use out of that. This is Captain Grey's basically final episode that he's going to do anything of note, and they make a winter coat for him for just that one scene. But that's what they were there for, and they did it very well.
We know you're up there, Breck.
You're a naughty man, Breck. Come on down. Oh, he's hiding behind a rock.
Right. We're coming to take you.
Oh, don't do that. He's got a gun. I love the way Scarlet ducks for cover fairly realistically.
Pit Breck, give up before it's too...
Blue just sort of tips over to the side.
Too late for you, Earthmen.
Ooh.
What does that mean?
I've planted a bomb in the radio telescope's rotation.
Oh, he's broken cover to tell us this.
The observatory will be blown to pieces.
He's quite an easy target now.
You will never beat us.
Got him.
We've got to warn them.
There's no time.
We must try.
And this is just a wonderful race against time. The music, the pacing, the voice acting, the editing, it all combines. This last 60 seconds before we start to rotate the aerial to receive those wonderful pictures of Mars that are going to help us so much in our fight against the Mistrons. And the astronomers don't know that there's a bomb on the observatory.
Rotate aerial.
Of course, Scarlet and Blue have no way to warn them. And you just have this image of Scarlet and Blue off-screen racing back to warn them. But we kind of know this is Captain Scarlet. They're not going to make it. You want them to make it, because as I said, I like what the voice actors are doing here, particularly this.
Do it. This time we're gonna do it.
We're gonna do it. My God, we're gonna do it. Maybe we're not gonna do it. And this is just horrific. The observatory, the dish tips over, and you get that brief, terrible shot of the scientists just being buried in debris. And as I said, I find these guys somewhat likable. They're not bubbling with personality or anything, But you do feel a certain attachment to them, because it's obvious that this project meant so much, and at that last moment they were so excited, and then it's just the Mysterons cannot let you have any fun. And all this debris tumbling down the mountain is just brilliant. And there's one shot here I think this is it, yeah. Oh, that one glorious accident of a shot where some debris comes right into camera. And ever since I was a kid, I was always watching that shot and trying to pick out which bit it was long before it hit the camera. And the irony of this is just supreme. They got their probe to Phobos. It's now transmitting its pictures back to Earth. But of course, there's nobody there to receive it now. We have this pan from the satellite across space, and then just the debris at the bottom of the mountain. Oh.
K-14 Observatory has been completely destroyed. There is no chance of there being any survivors.
And we've lost our SPV. Can Melody and Grey come and pick us up?
The Shadow of Fear.
Oh.
What was that, Colonel?
Oh, Green's thinking, do I have to call for the nurse to sedate the Colonel? He's rambling again.
Fear. The name is appropriate. Because of the Mysterons, the whole world lives in the shadow of fear.
What about Operation Sword, sir?
Operation Sword.
Well, that was just a joke.
Everything, Lieutenant. That goes ahead as scheduled.
But we won't tell anybody what it is or what happens. Again, I think I mentioned before, you can kind of piece together maybe Operation Sword is a general push to return to Mars. There's evidence for that in Flight 104 and Noose of Ice, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about Shadow of Fear, and that was absolutely wonderful. That is one of my favourite episodes of Captain Scarlet. Always has been, always will be. I just love that it's such a... Not only is it a change of pace in terms of setting and story, it's the fact that we're going back to the issue of the first episode. You know, Mars, the Mysterons, this is a looming threat. Rather than be on the defensive all the time, we should perhaps take the fight to them a bit. Maybe we should start to do something. And obviously in a show like this, an episodic show where the episodes are going to be shown in random order, you cannot build a continuing storyline. But you can, point towards things going on. And I think this is a great development of that. I just love the setting. Love the guest characters, oddly enough. There's some real... I think it's more the voice actors than anything else, but they just do such a fabulous job with this one. And the music in this one is one of my single favourite episodic scores in just the whole Anderson universe. So yeah, all round, a fantastic episode of Captain Scarlet in all departments. One of my favourites. Always has been. I think it always will be. Good stuff.
Well, that's sort of spooky, isn't it?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, Shadow of Fear. Yeah, make no bones about it.
So
I got it in. I got it in.
Yeah, see what you did there.
Yeah. Well, it's better than maybe, Lives of the Witch and Famous.
Ooh.
Oh, I'm literally reading these from a website. The worst 125 Halloween puns.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was going to go to a party tonight dressed as a skeleton, but I had nobody to go with.
Oh, yeah. Really? Is that that's the level we're at here?
Yeah, I think we'll have to leave it there.
Hang on, well, I want to find one now.
Oh, go on then.
I need to make up for the skeleton.
Aging Terry Adlam.
Yeah. No, these are all terrible. Pumpkin puns.
Oh, good.
Other Halloween puns.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, no, this isn't going great.
Nothing happening. No. Well, okay. I'll tell you what, though. Vampires. They're a pain in the neck, aren't they?
Oh, okay. That's really got this party startled.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. I think you're literally looking at the same website that I'm looking at.
I probably am. There aren't that many that are listing Halloween puns. Anyway, thank goodness this thing's almost over. By which I mean Halloween and this episode of the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Chris will be back next time with his randomizer. Please do follow him on Twitter, where he is at Chris Dalek. And he tweets all sorts of lovely stuff. And you can tell him how much you love the randomizer because, well, you should love the randomizer. Don't you love the randomizer? I love the randomizer. Richard loves the randomizer.
Of course.
Good. That's settled then. Anyway, Richard, have you got anything else before we wrap this one up?
Well, I'd just like to say you can't always get what you want.
Is that a Halloween pun?
That's what it says here.
Wow.
Wand.
Yeah.
It's wand, witches and wizards and that.
Yeah. I'm not really sure about
No,
that
all
one.
right, okay, let's leave it. All right, fine. Okay, right, see you next week then.
Okay, happy Halloween, everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
Wow.
Yeah,
really.
terrible.
We were really running a bit dry there at the end, weren't we?
Yeah, well, I would like to tell a few more skeleton jokes, but don't know if you'd find them very humorous.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. What's the skeleton's favourite food?
Spooketti?
No, spare ribs.
Of course it would be spare ribs, yeah.
Yeah, that's
okay. I've literally scrolled down to the end of that webpage now, and there are no more Halloween jokes. So
that's
I think
okay.
we've mined the best of them. Yeah,
you've already got me under your spell.
Oh,
how's that? Is that any good?
Is it still Halloween? Is it finished yet? Is it finished? Please stop! No more Halloween.
It's all been beautiful.
No, come on! No more Halloween jokes. That's terrible.
All right, fine.
I'll tell you what, though, you and me, Jamie.
Yeah.
Fiends for life.
Squad ghouls.
Oh, I don't even get that one.
Oh, is it? You're not down with the kids now? Squad goals. You know, it's like
No.
what you want to aim for to be a group of cool friends who.
I see.
Yeah.
Great. All right then.
All right.
See you next week. When it won't be Halloween anymore.
Oh, thank goodness for that. Bye.
All right. Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.